guest at this motherfucking house. No, man. We was about to let everybody in this house. Hell no. No vampires allowed. Fuck that. All are not welcome. All are not welcome. You are not.
With the spiritual deity, like you know, Papa Legba, who is arguably who they say Tommy Johnson or Robert Johnson sat down at the crossroads to get they guitar tune and sold their soul for you know musical skills for the remainder of their life. You know that in that concept of what type of deals do people in oppressive situations have to make and have to rationalize, you know, and me realizing that, oh yeah, man, I'm from Oakland, but it was a time when there wasn't no black people in Oakland. They all had to come from somewhere. And where did they leave? You know what I'm saying? They left home. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And if for me it was like, oh yeah, it's always a deal. You know what I'm saying?
Sinners was not no movie. That was a spiritual manual, if you ask me. How many people watched Sinners and probably thought this is just a vampire movie with a little music added to it? There's so much to unpack. I'm gonna have to do this in 2 parts. If you have not seen the movie, this is your chance to scroll now. We talking about I ruined it for you. Like I said, Sinners was a whole spiritual download wrapped in a ritual. We're gonna start at the juke joint with the twin brothers smoking stag. They came back to Mississippi in the Jim Crow era to open up their black-owned juke joint. We all know the juke joint wasn't just no club. That was a sacred space for us. It was a safe zone where black folks could gather, be themselves, dance, laugh, cry, sing. Most importantly, where they could remember who they were. Enter Sammy, their little cousin, who has this amazing gift. I ain't just talking about a musical talent. I'm talking about a spiritual frequency. Sammy could play the blues in a way that could call spirit. This is the whole reason why Remick, which was that first vampire that showed up, this is why he wanted Sammy. He was actually willing to let everybody else live as long as he got Sammy. He said Sammy could play music so good that it could connect the souls of different eras. The movie, the music opened portals. So this is what we mean when we talk about music today and we say it's a conjuring tool. It's a weapon, it's a bridge, it's a spell. The moment he touched that guitar, you could feel the ancestors move. You could feel spirit rise. Why? Because sound is vibration. Vibration is how we move between realms. But here's where it gets real, because that same power that Sammy held also attracted the darkness. Because when you gift it, you don't just attract light. You attract everything, and that includes spiritual parasites, energy vampires, and people who don't want to own what they don't understand. Let's talk about the vampires, shall we? Because they weren't just thirsty for blood. They was thirsty for culture. Now, Remick and his folks didn't want to unalive Sammy. They wanted to own him, own his music, own his power, own his frequency. That's colonization as we know it. This is what they've done to our culture. Black creativity, black sound, black food, black ritual. Take it, twist it, label it there, and feed it back to us disconnected from its root. The main reason people demonizing what they showed us in the movie is literally embedded within us. Now, the biggest thing that I took notice of, vampires could not come in until they were invited. This goes back to everything that I've been telling y'all, especially when I get a lot of bookings and people coming to me saying, I've been hexed. They put something on me. The first thing I tell them is you let them. Not only that, you sitting right here affirming it. So no, they can't come in unless they invited. That's spiritual law. Yes, even dark forces need consent, whether it's in the form of contracts, bad deals, fear, silence, humiliation rituals, you name it. Now, Remick, that first vampire that went to that couple's house, remember, he didn't break in. He manipulated his way in, finessed his way. And that was symbolic to tell you that evil don't always look scary. Sometimes it looks safe. Sometimes it looks like an opportunity. Sometimes it looks like it needs help. Better take it back to what I always tell you, that ain't got shit to do with me. That's the motto. As a true hoodoo girly, I was so proud in that movie. I know we about to talk about the hoodoo element. Miss Annie, honey, she was the quiet conjurer in the corner. I peeped game when she talked about that mojo bag immediately. I'm like, okay, Annie girl, protect your man. That's what I'm talking about. Mojo bags and hoodoo are used for protection, guidance, and the power. You know, the thing everybody wants, do anything to get it. But anywho, Annie was the one who knew about shit before anybody else knew. She had that inner knowing. She was connected to her higher self, as well as the ancestors. That's the wisdom of the root worker, the seer, the protector. fire, the singing, the garlic, all of that is coded protection. We ain't just lighting fire for warmth, we using it to cleanse, send up messages, to burn away what doesn't belong. Gotta talk about that music scene that took us through different genres, different eras. That was the visual timeline of Black sonic power. From blues to funk to rock to soul. Every sound birthed from pain to power. Yet even with all that creativity, we still gotta work so hard to protect it. Because the vampires don't just want to feed. They want to own the entire record label. No different from what we seeing today. They're gonna have to meet me at part 2 because I'm gonna break down the bloodlines and the churches. But in the meantime and in between time, get in them comments and let me know y'all thoughts. Y'all enjoy it just as much as I did. What symbolism did you peep? As always, peace, love, and light, and gratitude for watching.
So I want to talk about this scene right here.
I am.
Ryan Coogler doesn't introduce Remick like your typical vampire. He doesn't rise from a coffin or creep through shadows. He falls. Literally. The first time we see him, his body appears to be dropping from the sky. The camera doesn't fully confirm it, but the visual language is loud and clear. This is a descent. His skin is burning under the sun, and he crashes violently to the ground. It's not just a dramatic entrance, it's a symbolic one. I think Coogler is tapping into something deeper. This isn't just a vampire arriving, it's a fallen being unleashed. And that's where the myth of the fallen angel comes in. Everything about Remick's introduction mirrors that. He's scorched by the light, weakened, disoriented, stripped of any elegance or power. He's not gliding in like some untouchable threat. He's crawling, wounded, desperate. Just like Lucifer in religious mythology, cast out, punished, and transformed. The sun doesn't just hurt him physically, it judges him. It marks him as unnatural. And Coogler doesn't stop there. He adds vultures circling overhead. Death is coming, and the land already knows. This isn't just a physical fall, it's a moral one. What makes that imagery so effective is how it reshapes the entire narrative. This isn't just a horror movie with a supernatural villain. This is a story about intrusion, about something breaking through where it doesn't belong, about what happens when evil that's been cast out finds a way back in. But here's the twist. Remick doesn't just rise up and start attacking people. He limps his way to the doorstep of a white couple. The husband is a known clan member, but instead of reacting with suspicion, they let him in. Why? Because Remick knows how to perform vulnerability. He's not demanding entry, he's playing the victim. He speaks calmly, flatters their worldview, and presents himself as someone on their side. He positions himself against the Choctaw hunters, he talks about gold, he doesn't come in forcefully, he makes them want to help him. And that's the danger. That's the power of the fallen angel archetype. It's not brute strength, it's manipulation. And it's such a deliberate, powerful choice. Remick isn't storming into town, he's infiltrating it, not with fangs, but with soft eyes and empty hands. That's the horror Coogler's leaning into here. Evil doesn't always scream, sometimes it whispers, it shows up looking wounded, it makes itself familiar, even comforting, it asks to be let in, and people open the door. That's why this introduction is so much more than just a cool shot. It's the blueprint for what the entire film is doing. Sinners isn't just about vampires and blood, it's a parable about how evil re-enters the world, not through force, but through seduction, through sympathy, through the illusion of shared struggle. Because Remick may look broken when he falls, but that's the point. Fallen angels don't lose power, they just learn how to use it differently. They change tactics, they wear pain like a disguise. And the scariest part? It works. I think Coogler's saying something real here, that the most dangerous forces don't always feel like invaders. Sometimes they feel like something you recognize, something that aligns with your fears, your anger, even your sense of justice. And that's why Remick is so terrifying. Not because he shows up as a monster, but because he shows up as someone you're willing to help. And that's the real horror.
I watched Sinners, and there's one thing I got out of it that I haven't seen anyone talking about. How the Asians played a role in the downfall of the black community. See, in America, We have always been focused on black and white issues, slavery, racism, and so on. But why does no one ever talk about the role the Asians also played in the downfall of the black community? See, in Sinners, Bo Chow and Lisa Chow made some selfish decisions. Their daughter was at their store. The vampires were threatening to get her. Smoker Stack, one of the twins, told everybody not to go outside. But old Bo Chow didn't listen and had to get his car. Got his ass turned. Then Lisa, seeing her husband turn, decides she wanna fight the vampires now. I ain't gonna tell y'all the rest, cause some of y'all might not have seen it yet. But what this made me think about was how the Asians have been causing our downfall right in our faces. They come into our communities with help from the government, grants and loans and stuff like that, but they start their businesses, the nail shops, the beauty supply stores, dry cleaners, restaurants. All of this is set up in the black community. Why? They don't put anything back into the community. They take their money, send it back home, or start other businesses in the black community. They take our money, but yet when we're facing something, they're nowhere to be found. They have profited off the black community for decades and never put 1 cent back into the community. But just like in the movie Sinners and in real life, it's our fault. They should have sent Lisa ass out there with her husband if that's what she really wanted. See, black people's power today is our spending dollar. That's all we got. If we spend our money wisely within our own communities, we could begin to prosper. But we go spend our money at the nail shops, the restaurants, the beauty supply stores. I bet some of y'all got on a wig right now you got from one. But what this movie showed me was there has been a destroyer hidden in plain sight among the black community, but because everybody has been focused so much on the black and white aspects of things, we haven't noticed the silent takeover.
So what did the vampires and sinners represent? I'm about to get into some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film yet, save this and come back to it. But if you have seen it, stick around and let's have a conversation. If you walked out of Sinners thinking they were just vampires, then you missed the deeper cut. This film is doing something way more layered. They weren't just hunting bodies, they were preying on grief, exhaustion, and the ache for belonging. And that makes them one of the most terrifying villains I've seen in a while. What this film does so well is peel back the surface of horror. It's not just about blood or fear. It's about manipulation. They weren't just some bloodthirsty predators lurking in the dark. They were something way more insidious. A false savior. A smiling face that promises relief, promises freedom, and ends up taking everything. And yeah, we can make some connections to white supremacy and cultural theft, but the deeper terror here is how convincing that promise looks when you're exhausted, grieving, and desperate for a way out. And that's what makes the setting so important. The juke joint in Sinners isn't just a bar, it's a sanctuary. This is a sacred place built by black folks, for black folks, in a world that refuses to see their full humanity. It's a place where music heals, where you can exhale without watching your back, where blues becomes this living, breathing archive of resistance. That joint is history, it's memory, it's joy carved out in a world full of pain. So when the vampires arrive, they don't show up with any violence. They slip in quietly. They pretend to understand, to relate. They present themselves as kindred spirits, as fellow seekers of love, pleasure, and freedom. They offer something that looks like freedom, a shared love of music, community, connection. A place that looks like sanctuary, but strips away agency, history, and identity. Their version of freedom is eternal submission. Their version of love is ownership. They claim to be offering salvation from a world that won't let black people live, but their salvation is death, disguised as peace, disguised as kinship. And that's what makes the horror so sharp. The vampires use real truths, the danger black communities face, the systems that keep them pinned down as bait. They don't deny the world is cruel, they agree. They validate the pain, then twist it, using it to make their offer look like salvation. That kind of manipulation cuts way deeper than any bite ever could, because it reflects how oppressive systems don't just destroy through violence. They gaslight, they seduce, they reframe exploitation as liberation and call it kindness. And they're not just after blood. They want culture, they want stories, they want the music, the memory, the soul that came from surviving generation after generation of hardship. but they want to take it without understanding it, without earning it. They want the song without the struggle, the rhythm without the roots. That's cultural appropriation taken to its most extreme, most literal, and most terrifying form. But what I love is that Sinners doesn't stop at the horror. It shows resistance, not just through action, but through survival, through continuing to create, through refusing to surrender what's sacred. The characters don't just fight to stay alive, they fight to protect their story, to hold on to their voice, to reject the comfort that demands they give up who they are. It's a bold and powerful reminder that choosing to live fully, even when it's hard, is a form of defiance. And before I wrap this up, I have to give credit where it's due. Jack O'Connell as Remick absolutely crushed it. He brought such a careful balance to that role. One moment he's completely charming, magnetic, almost comforting, and the next he's cold, manipulative, and downright terrifying. There's a quiet menace in the way he plays Remick. He doesn't just scare you, he unsettles you. And that's a testament to just how good he is in this role.
There's horror, and then there's movies like Sinners, where the symbolism is just next level. Spoiler alert, every character is a symbol themselves. Annie represents liberation, Pearline, adultery, Sammy is lust, Delta Slim, drunkenness, and Cornbread is pride. In the first time we actually meet the villain, the vampire, he's already been hunted and wounded by Native Americans, the Choctaw, who were native to parts of Mississippi. Shows they already know how to fight this evil and have experienced it long before anyone else. Then there's the relationship with Black and Asian communities, primarily Chinese and Korean, that shows the intertwining of cultures during segregation, where Asians could own businesses where Blacks couldn't, and would serve Blacks where Whites wouldn't, which created a complicated relationship. And then the juke joint, music becomes its own character, and we see that music is the thing that unites all these people throughout time and across cultures, from Zaoli, a traditional dance of the Guro people from the Côte d'Ivoire, to ballet and twerking. The juke joint is the center of culture exchange, but it also exposes these communities to outside threats. Mary is the first victim. She represents allies and those who would pass an assembly, sometimes used as a tool for actions by both sides, similar to what happened with poor whites and Europeans who were taught to turn against black people based on race post-Reconstruction. And then you have the one who put everything in jeopardy, Cornbread. He is the gatekeeper or bodyguard figure, imposing in size, but he is swayed and distracted by shiny objects, and easily manipulated by others' perceptions of him. Prideful and greedy, which leads to the real villain, Remick. Remick equals greed, because in this movie, greed didn't discriminate. It was willing to destroy the lives of the whites, the Klan, blacks, and Asians. But nevertheless, in the end, Sammy realizes that music can be a conduit to all, greed and evil, but it also saved him. So what symbols did you pick up on? Because there are definitely more.
Bro, I watched Sinners last night and I just woke up. And it's a scene in that movie that I just can't stop thinking about, bro. I ain't gonna say too much about the movie, but I'm gonna get straight to the point. But the moment bro started singing in that one scene and the darkness started coming from everywhere, that was not just a horror scene. That was very much spiritual, bro. It showed me when you have light, your name carries weight in the spirit. You don't have to announce who you are. Your anointings already speaks for itself. But here's the thing. Everyone drawn to that light is not there to support you. Some come to drain you, distract you, or dim what God has already put in you. Your gift will most definitely attract attention, but it's in your discernment that'll keep you protected. So no, everybody can't go. Protect your light.
Did this guy right here sell his soul to become a world famous musician to the devil? And now he's the inspiration for Ryan Coogler's and Michael B. Jordan Sinners? Let's talk about it. Alrighty, so this guy right here, Robert Johnson, was born in Hazelhurst, Mississippi to Julia and Noah Johnson. And around age 8 is where he started to develop his musical taste and also his talents. Okay, now fast forward some years down the road. He's now in his early 20s and he's traveling from town to town to Mississippi, Arkansas, even Dallas. And this is how his legend slowly started to spread. Going town to town, performing at corners, performing on random streets, performing in venues is where his legend started to grow as the guy who sold his soul at some crossroads for talent from the supernatural. Somewhere in Mississippi, by a plantation, Robert Johnson went to the local or closest crossroads, and he was told to bury his guitar at midnight. And a large shadowy being, which turns out to be the devil. The devil took the guitar from him, played a few notes and songs, tuned it to his liking, and gave it back to him. And from that moment on, this where he got his power, so says the legend. But in exchange for this power that the devil gave him after tuning his guitar, the devil in exchange wanted his soul. So there is where he signed the contract, allegedly, to the devil for fame and talent. After that, allegedly, he didn't live any much longer. He ended up dying around the age of 27 for unknown reasons. It's rumored that he probably died from syphilis, or he probably was poisoned because people saw him at a local bar arguing with some people. So they think it could be that as well too. Or some people might say the devil came to collect what was owed to him. So guys, that's pretty much is the quick sum up of Robert Johnson, aka the guy who sold his soul for talent from the supernatural, which happens to be the inspiration for the Sinners movie with Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. If you watch the movie, it's a character called Preacher Boy, and that's supposed to be Robert Johnson, the guy who was blessed. And if you realize, Robert Johnson, who was supposed to be the inspiration for Preacher Boy played that guitar that was passed down. And when he played that guitar, it was like a supernatural opening or call to everything out there. And that's how the vampires end up finding him. And the vampires are, i.e., the devil. So, guys, let me know what you guys think about the movie down in the comments. Fun fact, one for the day. You learn something. Until next time, guys.
The movie Sinners teaches you that welcome mats are demonic. Here's how. Just like in the movie, in this scene where they needed his consent in order to enter their home, right? This is the basic laws of the ancient times, right? Where you need that consent in order to be violated. Therefore, the person who is violating you goes scotch-free. And so these welcome mats, which are in English is a demonic language, right? You're welcoming more than what you can see with your eyes. So don't look at the vampire as a physical being. Look at it in the spirit, like a parasite that latches on to people and that they need other people to follow, right? And so if they're these spirits that you can't see, like I said, like a parasite, right? Latching on to the air, to the spirit, to life. When you put that welcome, you've already, in a demonic language, told demons who can read in that language that they're welcome to walk to your threshold. And so then you wonder why the sage ain't working, and you wonder why the scriptures ain't working, just like in the movie where he was reading the scriptures and they were saying it just right back to him, because you've already gave me the consent. So what happens afterwards doesn't matter, because initially I walked through the door. Understand that we are also in an evil spiritual world that manifests, right? That evil that knocked at his door, it manifested into a physical man, something that their dimension was able to understand with their eyes, right? But look at it in the spirit, where that knock on your door, you open it, no one's there. That welcome mat telling them to come in, they're already inside. So now the evil that's plaguing your home, plaguing you and your health, your spirit, your kids, this is why. And this also lets you know not to invite everyone in your home, not to invite everyone in your space. The moment that you do that, that is also initiation for them to plague you in the shadows, because you don't know where everyone's origins come from. A lot of these people's origins is unclean, and that's in the Bible. So you have to be separate. Had they would have been separate from that life, evil would have never even had the audacity to knock at their door. Then you have to also understand gifts as well, because you can't receive a gift from just anybody. Because the moment that you receive that gift, initially, whatever's behind it is going to hit you. So if you accept it, just like a welcome mat, if you accept that initial entry of me getting inside, then you also accept the demons that come with it if the gift is unpure.
Easter eggs and everything you might have missed in Sinners. Spoiler alert, obviously go see this movie, it is incredible. During the mid-credit scene we see Sammy, who is now played by Buddy Guy, who is a blues legend, but the name of his club is Parlene's. He named it in honor of Parlene, who didn't make it out that night. In Remic's first scene we see him fall directly in front of the camera. We don't know it at the time, but this is him falling out of the sky. He is mirroring a fallen angel. Now the official Spotify Sinners playlist hid some really interesting lore in the form of 3 different articles. This article is titled Grisly Discovery at Boston Harbor. It details the wreckage of an Irish immigrant ship. No one was found on the ship, just burnt furniture and blood-soaked floors alongside a smoking man leaving the scene. This seems to be how Remick arrived in the US, and it's dated 1911, so he was in the US for 20 years before the events of Sinners. We also get some new lore about the Smokestack twins. This article is about 2 masked men robbing a bank. One was described as using smooth, calculated commands, while the other used rough, violent force. Sound familiar? The article also mentions that it was like seeing double because the 2 men looked so alike, and the article also mentions that these robbers are tied to past heists. Finally, this article here is about gang tensions rising between the Irish mob and the Italian mafia. This is following Smoke and Stack stealing from both of them, both the Italian wine and the Irish beers, and the gangs obviously look at each other. This isn't an Easter egg or anything you might have missed, but this is Miles Caton's first ever role, and it has just absolutely blown my mind since I found that out.
Everybody asking where the Native American vampire hunters went in Sinners, and let me explain something to y'all. By that point in history, the Native Americans was done talking. They was done talking. They had done enough talking and going back and forth with y'all at that point in history. Baby, I said it one time, you act like you ain't understand what I was saying. He peeked around her shoulder, seen that KKK hood, and says, you know what, baby? We already know you can't reason with this type of stupid. They was the originals. They was the first group to learn firsthand. This is the type of stupidity that you cannot reason with. Baby, I asked you, you ain't want my help. You act like I was bothering you on your doorstep. Me and my friend finna hop on these horses and get the fuck on, bitch. Y'all gotta think historically. The natives was already, look, bitch, we already tired of playing with y'all. I ain't finna sit up here and negotiate with you. You got a gun to my head. Best of luck to you. Okay? You don't gotta worry about a motherfucking thing. So to answer y'all question, it was beautiful seeing them in the movie, baby, but they was right where they usually is. Mine's in a good, spiritual, connected to the earth business, bitch. And that's what everybody should have did, but you see how that went.
This is part 2 of the Sinners decoding. Got to break down the bloodlines and the churches. Definitely got to talk about Stack, Smoke, and Sammy's bloodline, because when I tell y'all that thing is layered, the theme of this movie wasn't just a fight against vampires. This was a fight against trauma, ego, ancestral, and generational cycles. Smoke, the older brother, was too busy trying to prove himself. Stack was a little bit more protective. Neither of them fully understood the gift that Sammy was carrying. None of them understood that the gift as well as the curse ran straight through their ancestral bloodline. We gotta talk about that spicy scene between Mary and one of the twins. That wasn't just sex. That shit was a spiritual contract. Yeah, I'm talking about the part where they exchanged bodily fluids. And who do we know and understand that bodily fluids are spirit carriers? The moment she exchanged saliva with him, she binded herself to him. aka tied herself to him. This is why you gotta be mindful who you connecting with. They don't call it sacred energy exchange for nothing. And you wondering why you got people jumping out the bushes, busting out your windows, busting out your tires, coming in your house, especially when you tell them you done. You don't even realize you signed a contract. Did y'all peep how the movie starts and ends in the church? That was real intentional because in many black families, especially in the South, church is the place where salvation and suppression meet. Sammy's father called him a sinner for playing the blues. The blues was his therapy, his connection to God, aka his higher self. That's the core message. The very thing they shame you for might be the very thing to save you. Y'all know how I feel about church. To keep it a buck, church can be a portal or a prison. It depends on the preacher and it depends on your discernment. Because I know a lot of people that found their way through church. I'm talking about found their way back to them. On the end of the movie, little Sammy, who's not so little anymore, he gets a visit from one of his cousins and Mary, who are now vampires. I remember they offered him eternal life, which he was like, nah, I'm good. I don't think I want to do this shit no more. Felt like he lived fully. He made his choice. He used his gift with integrity. That's the real immortality. I don't even have enough time to go over all the little specific symbolism. I noticed even the smallest details like the red and blue hat. Red and blue always represent duality, blood and truth. Think masculine and feminine, Republican, Democrat, war, peace. It's how they play both sides of the game while keeping you distracted. What they keeping you distracted from? Your middle, aka your center, aka you. Michael B. Jordan wasn't just playing both roles, he embodied both energies. That's what that was showing us. This is the game, polarity versus balance. Before I let y'all go, I gotta touch on the vampire and sun symbolism. I feel like we could speak about this freely now because we know by now vampires are real, right? We need to put this shit to bed that they can't stand the sun. The reason they always talking about the sun is not because it burns them physically, because the sun represents exposure, divinity, truth, source consciousness. People who the movie was about were made from the sun. We are the sun people. Neuromelanin is solar powered. So what happens exactly when darkness is exposed to pure light? It dissolves. In the movie, just like in real life, they hide from the sun. Guess what? The sun is rising, just like it is right now in society. The sun sheds light on all. It don't discriminate. More of us stepping into that light, reclaiming our power. Vampires not necessarily bad guys. They represent duality. They are the walking line between death and immortality, between flesh and spirit. They feed on life but can't live fully. They seduce but don't love. They mimic human form, have no soul spark. Does that sound familiar? This is symbolic of the forces in society that want your energy, your essence, but not your evolution. Want to use your light without becoming the light. We're going to wrap it up, but before we do, music, the beats, the costume, the visuals, the feelings, top tier. Shout out to Ryan Coogler. They started singing. That wasn't just singing. That was ancestral memory. It's what we call root work coded in sound. Drumming, the pitch, the rhythm. That's what you call spiritual technology. That's how our people call down power, raise our frequency, as well as push back spirit. Even the costumes wasn't just aesthetic. They were wardrobe spells, colors, fabrics, symbols, all chosen with intent. In the old days, they ain't dressed for fashion. They dressed for function, for ritual, for protection. Integration of the different ethnic groups. That wasn't just no diversity. Blacks, whites, Asians, all wrapped up in scenes together. On the surface, it's like, all right, cool, they trying to be inclusive. I love this for them. I took that as a symbolic integration of frequency. It shows how the new world, aka the controlled world, will require everybody to plug into the same system, move in unison to become one hive mind. You don't have to look alike as long as you think alike. You still need to be aware and peep game. Notice, soon as Mary carried her ass back over to that house, all hell broke loose. I forget the Asian lady name. Who told her ass to invite them in? To me, that was showing how they do shit and never think about nobody but themselves. If you was that eager, you could have carried your ass outside. I said it once, but I'll say it again. Sinners wasn't a movie, it was more like a mirror. It showed us how the church can either protect or imprison. The gift can elevate or enslave. Vampires don't need no damn blood. They feed off of culture, frequency, and the fact that you're naive. Your light is divine, but it has to be guided. It also showed us that Jim Crow never left. He just changed his clothes. And hoodoo ain't never died. It just got quiet. It reminded us that our music, our roots, our rituals, our roots work. All sacred. I went through a lot real fast. So again, if I missed anything in part 1 or part 2, feel free to jump in them comments. If I sit here and call out every single thing from that movie, we'll be here all night. As always, peace, love, and light, and gratitude for watching.
You might think Sinners is about Smoke and Stack, but what if I told you that this movie is more about Sammy Moore, played by Miles Catton, than you think? Major spoilers ahead, so be warned. First up, let's talk about the symbolism, because Ryan Coogler did not come to play. First up is the guitar. It's more than just a prop. It's a thread connecting black culture, pain, joy, and resistance through generations. The white leader Remick is obsessed with black music, and he even goes to the lengths of saying, yo, I will let everybody live if you give me Sammy. That's not random. Sammy's music holds power, unifying soul power. The vampires, they're not just monsters, they represent a group of people who come and take over black music, which makes Sammy's blues not just music, but defiance. And this is why I think the music was so important in this film. Let's talk about that sawmill. It was more than just creepy, it was a ground, a sight of unspeakable violence against black people. There's a moment when one of the brothers noticed a stain on the floor. Blood, you already know. By the end, it's already confirmed the location is soaked in history and not the kind they teach you in school. Then there's the church. We open there and then we end there. By the time we circle back, Sammy is facing a massive choice. Stay in the church and bury his dream, or risk chasing the blues and being labeled a sinner. It's not just a personal conflict, it's generational, spiritual, and cultural. This movie sings literally and metaphorically. It is rich, layered, and full of messages that'll keep echoing long after the credits roll. Look, shout out to the cast and crew for creating a phenomenal film. Look, it's your boy Bobby at Watch Real Flicks. Get your ass up and go watch Sinners ASAP. Hey, don't forget to hit that follow button.
If you are a black Christian and you have a problem with Ryan Coogler's new movie Sinners, I'm going to hold your hand while I tell you this. The only reason you are a Christian is because someone in your ancestry, one of your ancestors, was forced to convert. Okay? Sit with that. What's even more ironic is this movie is set in the Jim Crow era. The people are literally in the fields. They're picking cotton. They're sharecroppers. Slavery was just a few years prior to that. The Native Americans had already been run out of some of the states. The Trail of Tears, look it up. You guys are so offended by a movie, right? Than the fact that your ancestors were in chains and Christianity did not free them. Christianity was forced upon them. The fact that you are a Christian today should be insulting. It is an insult to our ancestors to still carry the religion that was forced upon them. As a matter of fact, the people in the movie, the only two people in that movie that had any form of insight were the Native Americans and Annie the Hoodoo priestess. The people who were connected to their spirituality, who were connected to the nature and the earth, they were the only people in the movie who had a clue about what was happening. They were the most enlightened people. Everyone else had been indoctrinated. And those that were not indoctrinated were literally part of the system that was oppressing the indigenous people and the black people. So thinking that Christianity was supposed to save them is insane, because Christianity was used as a tool to oppress them. And it's crazy that in 2025, we're still having these conversations. That just goes to show how strong those mental chains are. Like the physical chains, they took those chains off. But baby, those mental chains, I can still hear them rattling.
So we just found out there was real witchcraft being done on the set of the movie Sinners. The Nigerian-British actress Wunmi Mosaku, she played the actress named Annie in the movie, who was also doing witchcraft. But here's what you guys didn't know. She actually had real hoodoo priestess on set. Oh, you think I'm lying? Well, watch this clip.
Because your character, Annie, I just feel like I don't know, the way that she's the healer of the group. Could you talk a little bit about exactly what he told you as far as like what, sort of like indigenous and African and, former slave rituals that he was borrowing from when he sort of like crafted the mythology of your character?
Hoodoo is a real practice, and we had a hoodoo consultant, and I spoke to hoodoo priestesses, so it is very much grounded and real and practiced, and I think he's really treated it with as much respect and honor as possible, because I do feel like the Western world media has kind of shown us like a really dark side of voodoo, and I didn't know it was such a healing, loving, spiritual, connected practice. I feel so empowered and inspired by the people I've met in my research. So yeah, she's very real, and that practice is very real. I guess the thing that isn't real is the vampires. you know.
I didn't want people.
She said the Western world media has shown a dark side of voodoo. For those who don't know what hoodoo is, let's read up a little about it. A traditional African-American spiritual practice that incorporates elements of African traditional spirituality, Christianity, and spiritualism. Guys, this has nothing to do with being a Christian. It is a system of belief and practices including folk magic and rituals that developed among enslaved African-Americans in the southern United States. Key aspects include root work, which involves using plants and herbs, and in conjure, which involves communicating with spirits. In other words, talking to their ancestors. And that's what Christians were going to say, that they are actually talking to demons. Guys, there's only one spirit that needs to be inside of your temple, and that is the Holy Spirit. But sadly enough, a lot of actors and actresses invite spirits inside of their temple to take over them when they are playing a role for a movie. When was the last time we seen something like this? Well, Taraji P. Henson.
Allowing this character to use your body as a vessel. And so you have to learn how to flip the switch on and flip it off. Otherwise, it could drive you mad. You know, because you have your own, like she says it all the time, she has her cross to bear and then your character's cross to bear. It's too much. It can be too much.
So ladies and gentlemen, you have a lot of different actors and actresses who think that they can just allow spirits inside of their temple and the spirit is just going to leave once the movie is over. Absolute rubbish. When you invite a spirit inside of your temple that is not God, trust me, that spirit is going to get comfortable. And just because the movie is over doesn't mean that that spirit is leaving. Now there has to be something done called deliverance. Guys, trust me, there has been a lot of different movie people that you know that have invited spirits in and have been lost in their character. Exhibit A. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, once they played Wicked, became completely two different human beings. Now, why is that? That's because spirits were invited in and they become possessed. I know a lot of you guys don't like to hear this truth, but that's exactly what it is. The problem is a lot of different human beings don't understand the spiritual aspect of life. You guys think that you're just a simple human being, when no, you have a body, but inside of your body there's a soul and a spirit. And in all actuality, there should only be the Holy Spirit within your temple, and you don't make room for other spirits telling the Holy Spirit to scoot over. That is not how it works, ladies and gentlemen. Once God cleans your house, you only let God in your house. And when you start letting more and more different spirits in your house, that's like telling God to move out. And I say this for Christians, people who are believers, people who have been born again. People who are not Christians and have not been born again, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to children of God. People who are just creations of God, I pray for you to come in to submission of Christ to become a child of God. And at that point, I'll be talking to you as well. Stay awake, my brothers and sisters. Stop listening to false individuals who are teaching you dangerous things. Don't allow it to get into your mind or your soul. Amen. I pray this video was edifying. God bless.
All right, it's time to explain the ending for Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Bro, this ending was so deep. Let me tell y'all. So everything kicks up with the vampires when Grace says, basically, I'll invite you in. And we see Annie get took out. We see Grace get took out. Slim. People just start dropping. And then we see Stack and Smoke going back and forth, brother versus brother. They're going at it. And we see that Smoke ends up having a chance to take out his brother Stack. But they always said they gonna have each other's back. And we find out later in the film that Smoke let his brother go. He just made him promise like, hey, don't touch our cousin Sammy, bro. Let him live. Pushing forward, once we see this scene right here, right before we see Sammy and Remnick going up against each other in this water. And we see a crazy scene where Remnick actually tries to baptize Preacher Boy Sammy. And Preacher Boy Sammy starts to pray, and because his dad is a preacher, so he's trying to believe in what his dad taught him about, religion and everything. And he tries it, and he sees that it doesn't work. It's all word of mouth. So all these years, obviously, his dad's been telling him he's been doing the devil's work with his guitar because people think that the Delta Mississippi Blues is devil's music, and telling him all this stuff. So he finally tries to give his dad a chance when he tells him this stuff in church and everything about God, and it doesn't work. So it kind of makes him seem like he loses belief. And to make it crazier, we see the other vampires come along with Remick and recite this prayer, showing that Remick actually he said this prayer before. He's familiar with this prayer. We both have trauma we went through, and I resorted to this prayer that hasn't worked for me, so it's definitely not gonna work for you. That scene actually gave me the chills, bro. This is just showing like it's not gonna work. Pushing forward, we see Preacher Boy Sammy enter the church with his guitar. His dad basically tells him, come, put the guitar down. We find out that Preacher Boy did not even put the guitar down. He left and he made a deal, and he got up out of there with his guitar and he took the long road. Finding out he did what he told Smoke he was going to do, go up to Chicago, and he got his juke joint going. Years later, we see him as a successful blues musician, with a juke joint, and, you know, he's doing well. Then we see Stack and Mary walk in, and this is Chicago 1992 from my knowledge. And they approach him, and they tell him, they say, hey, man, we listen to all your records. You've been doing great. And he tells him, like, yeah, Smoke let me go because I promise I won't touch you. But I'm here to offer to you, you can be one of us. Meanwhile, this boy right here, their little cousin Sammy, he's old now. But we see that they're still the same age. They live on forever. And he offers him, hey, let me bite you up and you could live for the rest of your life and play this blues music. Preacher Boy Sammy says he saw this world enough. But this scene was showing that the whole time Remnick, Stack, all the vampires was right. They only wanted to do it just to live forever and have some type of protection against like the Klansmen and people that, you know, did bad. And they were living in tough times in Mississippi. This was basically for protection and to live on. That's why they was trying so hard to get their people involved. That's why they tried to get Annie. They wanted Preacher Boy Sammy because they seen how good of music he played and how he brought people together. So they wanted him bad, but they couldn't get him. We also see Smoke being able to transition to the other side with his unborn child and Annie. And remember, Annie said, even if you take out the head vampire, other vampires can still live on. But that scene was so crazy because it showed, bro, remember I told you smoking that doorway in the juke joint? Look, we'll never be free. You ain't got no vision. Come over here, you can live forever. You, Annie, y'all be good, y'all be protected. And that's what that boy Rennick was trying to tell him, y'all. It's just so full circle.
The vampires wanted Annie. People are arguing with me and I'm trying to explain to y'all. You know, Remick wanted Preacher Boy's singing voice and ability to play that ancestral guitar to connect to the ancestors. We know that he wants that, yes. However, Annie is a hoodoo priestess. We saw that in the scene when she was doing all these rituals. She was using them to create protective spells, protective prayers, protective shield over Smoke and in subsequent relation, his twin. Since colonization, voodoo, hoodoo, and hoodoo priestesses are often depicted like this. Evil, bad ladies, like in the Pirates of the Caribbean. Viewed as people who use dark black magic to create distress and pain and evil stuff. Annie did the opposite. She created life. She protected life. She protected people that she loved and kept them safe. What the hell do you think Remick was going to use that power for? If Remick got to turn her into a vampire, he would be able to protect himself from garlic, iron, stakes that they, kill vampires with. And who even knows? Maybe the sun. Shit. And Annie knew this, which is why she told Smoke to not let her turn before killing her. He needed to kill her while she was still human. She explained in the movie why. She explained that a haint, which she initially thought they were, are a type of angry ghost or a soul that is disturbed and just staying on Earth causing havoc. However, they can still be freed and sent back to the spiritual realm. Vampires, however, cannot be saved in that sense. Once they've turned into a vampire, the soul is still there. The soul is still on Earth inside that body, but it's shrouded in darkness, shrouded in coldness of vampirism. So if she was to become a vampire, she would still be Annie with the gifts that she has connecting her to the spiritual realm, except she would be evil. She would be shrouded in darkness. And so her plan would be the same plan as Remick's, which is to deceive people, trap them in this eternal damnation of being a vampire. Use your common sense, people. Read between the lines. Come on, y'all. And that's why when they killed her in her human form, the vampires screamed. Not just Annie and Stack, but also Remick. He also screamed, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. But they screamed because they knew it wasn't just because they wanted Annie to join them because of their family and stuff. It's because they knew Remick's plan to use her. Guys.
Excuse me, ma'am. I'm here traveling with my friends. We're looking for a vampire. Is there a vampire in your house?
No.
All right, bet.